Well, welcome to the one and only Serverless Office Hours. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and I will particularly say good night to everyone wherever you may be across our lovely world. Of course, thanks for joining us. If you're joining us via the AWS Twitch channel or the YouTube AWS Events channel, you are more than welcome. It's so great to have you. We'd love to know where our global audience is, so please let us know in the comments where you're doing. And so please let us know, if you have any questions that you'd like to talk about. Now, I have two fantastic guests to bring today, but I actually need to get them extra kudos because Fabrianne and Jan are based in Singapore, and it is now 3 o'clock in the morning. So that's why I said good night to everybody, because, Jan and Fabrianne have done the exceptional and have decided that to grace the Serverless Office Hours with their expertise at a terrible time. So I know we have some people in New Zealand who sometimes watching at 6 a.m. for them. So that's like an early morning. This is bad to have not just a late night or an early morning, but yeah, bad. Fabrianne, over to you. Welcome to Serverless Office Hours for the first time. Tell us where you're from and how come you're doing what you do at AWS.
All right. Thanks a lot for having us here. I think we're really excited to be here on Serverless Office Hours today. I'm Fabrianne. I'm a Serverless Specialist Solutions Architect here at AWS. So I help customers across ASEAN in their application modernization journeys. So things like API modernization, event-driven architectures, or like transforming, let's say, legacy applications, monolith applications to be monolith microservices on the cloud.
Fantastic. Jan, also welcome to Serverless Office Hours. So nice to have you. What's your role at AWS and how did you land up doing app modernization as well?
Thank you, Julian. Thank you for having us. So my name is Jan. I'm a principal solutions architect. Been with AWS for quite some time, close to 10 years already. But I would say I'm an early adopter of AWS. I've been using AWS for the entirety of my career. Been using AWS before VPC was even a thing. So been using AWS for quite a very long time, and it's something that I'm very passionate about. App modernization, I have a very heavy developer background, so app modernization is very near and dear to my heart. And I'm very passionate about how modernization, application development, especially cloud native applications, is a very important topic for me.
Excellent, fantastic. We do have some people joining us as well. We've got from London, that's where I'm based as well. So Yasmin Kastan, thanks for joining us via YouTube. We also have Johannesburg, South Africa. So thanks for joining us via YouTube as well. I'm originally from Cape Town, so nice part of the world. We have an AWS student, so always lovely to see people who are students and learning things about AWS. And Erie Edits joining us from Twitch, who joins us regularly, which is nice. Hey, all, I was up at 3 a.m., but not by choice. Yeah. Hopefully you stick with us because that is an early start, certainly not by choice. So Fabrianne, over to you. Today we're talking about app modernization. We framed that both yourselves and Jan are experts at this, but doing this with CDK Blueprints. So can you explain what we're going to be talking about today? And should I bring up your screen or your slides? You let me know.
Yes, please. Yeah.
All right. So essentially, App Mod Catalog Blueprints is something that Jen and I have been working on almost the entire of last year, and it got launched publicly late last year. So we're really excited to share about this during Serverless Office Hours. So I guess how we can start is like, imagine if you are like a developer, right? You need to build different use cases, like a document processing pipeline or some AI kind of use case with AWS best practices, security best practices, observability, and all those kinds of things, deploy it on AWS Cloud, right? So Julian, just wanted to throw it back to you. How many lines of code do you think this kind of end-to-end solution may take?
That's an interesting question because it could be lots. AI could help, could be a little, but I think CDK it's abstracting cloud formation. So I'm rambling here because I don't actually know. I would have no idea. That's such a good question.
All right, yeah. So I mean, usually if we are building from infrastructure as code or like let's say pure CDK constructs, it still takes about like maybe thousands lines of code, right? But what if we abstract it in such a way that we can use, let's say, less than 100 lines of code, customizable to your industry use case? So, and with that also comes with no security headaches, no AWS best practices headaches, because all these, we have already considered a lot of these considerations when building the constructs. So yeah, that's the essence of AppMod Catalog. So AppMod Catalog Blueprints essentially is an open source library of use case driven infrastructure solution blueprints built on this AWS Well-Architected best practices. And yes, we are using CDK. Hope some of you here at least are fond of CDK. If not, here we are promoting to you the beauty of CDK and how we can leverage object-oriented programming principles on it. So for this, we are using L3 CDK constructs. So just quick refresher, L1 is usually for like single cloud resources, L2, some sort of high-level abstraction, and L3 is where we compose like multiple resources into complete solutions, right? So AppMod Catalog Blueprints, the key idea is like to have composable and multi-layered building blocks. So instead of like, let's say, integrating step functions, Lambda, Bedrock, S3, DynamoDB in like a document processing pipeline, for example, you have this single construct that does document processing, or you can build easily agentic AI workflows with few lines of code, but also with this customizability and the security and all the best practices in place. So we give you the option to rapidly deploy end-to-end solutions or customize like individual components for your specific needs. So yeah, I think that's a broad overview of AppMod Catalog. Now I'll pass over the time to Jen to go right in.
Okay,
that's
thank
awesome.
you, Fabrianne.
Well, I just want to say, Fabrianne, because one of the interesting things that I picked up on is the sort of the use case driven things, because there are lots of CDK constructs out there, and this is how you connect Lambda and Event Bridge, and this is how you do step functions with, I don't know, something with batch or something. So yeah, just tell us about the real world use cases, because that sounds interesting. That if I'm a customer, always have a real world use case that I want to solve for, and this is going to be help me with that. So what kind of real world use cases are we looking at?
Right. So for AppMod Catalog, the aim is to be able to consolidate like common industry use cases. So I mean, document processing I mentioned is a very common one, right? For example, it cuts across industries like, let's say, FSI. The financial industry, you can do things like know your customer screenings, or like insurance claims processing. Or for retail, you need to be consolidating like your receipts and whatnot. So different it will cut across different industries, so that we are trying to find those common use cases that have these kind of scenarios. Or another one is, let's say, a conversational chatbot, right? Any customer service or retail retail kind of industries would have that. Or you can also have these embedded in even workflows like doc processing, where you are chatting or summarizing documents, that kind of thing. So the possibilities are very vast. This is just the beginning. We started with like the more common use cases, but as we see things like, let's say, fraud detection and all more unique use cases, we will be adding on to this catalog and actively maintaining it. And we hope to get more contributors on board too.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Yeah, I like that real world use case lens of this as well. And I like what you also said, that it seems to be customizable and accessible, but yet secure and enterprise grade. Because that's the kind of thing. Often they're, blueprints, and you download it and you think, this is, it's 80% there, but it's so hard to customize the rest that you sort of give up. So I like that you've incorporated all the thinking. So yeah, over to you. You were going to show us some more.
Yes. So over to you, Jen.
Yep. Thank you very much. Okay. So I'm going to jump straight to it because the first thing that we're going to do here is to immediately do a quick demo of the most basic use case from AppMod Catalog, right? So what we're going to do here is that as we go along the discussions on the different components of AppMod Catalog, we are going to demonstrate the different layers involved in the framework and how those different layers sort of build on top of each other, enabling other use cases or enabling other capabilities. So I'm going to switch my screen here. Let me just share.
So I did actually put the the GitHub pages as well. So while Jan is bringing your screen up, that's in the chat comments as well, and also on YouTube and at the show notes, so you can get to it. And I will pop up the GitHub link and the blog post shortly as well.
Okay, thank you very
Excellent.
much.
Yep, Jan, we can see your screen.
Okay, cool. So as what Fabrianne mentioned, the core engine for the first use case is a document processing engine. Now, when we initially started building this, we initially started thinking about, oh, this can be a simple thing. This can be just a basic workflow. And we'll discuss more on what that workflow consists from a foundational layer later on, after we go through the quick demo. Now, as we talk to a number of different customers, talk to different partners, talk to other AWS folks, we realized that a lot of the different processes within other industries, a lot of different use cases within those industries actually fall into this particular use case. So although we started with a basic idea of, have a flexible document processing, it opened up other ideas as well, like, the same framework can be applied to fraud detection. The same framework can be applied to document summarization, data extraction as part of potentially KYC type of use cases for, onboarding. Let's say you want to apply for a new bank account, as an example. Or if you're doing like what Fabrianne mentioned earlier around insurance claims, you obviously need to be able to understand the different types of documents as part of, proof of the claim. So, for example, receipts around hotels, receipts around medical claims, for example, those types of things are part of that, that workflow. So I want to quickly show you this example here. Now, this example is very basic in a sense that this epitomizes the major concepts around document processing. You have your entry point, you have metadata collection, which when we say metadata collection, which means we keep track of the metadata around the document processing, the status of how the document is processed, where the files are located, the metadata around those files, the dates, and all of those stuff. Classification, for example, in this case. If you look at classification, we are able to say, hey, this image or this PDF that you uploaded, this is an invoice. Very basic thing, right? And that would feed into the downstream of how we process that particular document, because different types of document can be processed in different ways. Now, in this case, I'm just extracting the information from this invoice. So this invoice contains vendor information, contains the invoice number, the date, the cost, the line items, and all of the pertinent details that is included in that particular invoice. Okay? Now, I'm going to switch screens now to show you the code. Now, this is just a basic document processing of extracting information from an invoice, okay? So just keep that in mind. And I'm going to switch to my code now. If I can find it. Oh, where did I go? Here.
The code has run away.
Yes. No. Okay. So as what Fabrianne mentioned earlier, App Mod Catalog Blueprints is basically a CDK library. So it's open source, it's published, which means that you can access it via npm.js, you can access it via Maven, you can access it via PyPy, and other package managers that the respective programming languages within CDK supports. Now we're using TypeScript here, so obviously I'm showing npm.js package.json. So as you can see in this particular line here, I'm including CDK App Mod Catalog Blueprints in my project, right? Now, this is CDK, so that means I have a stack. So I'm going to show you the stack itself. Now, this is the code. You can see here, that's, how many lines of code, it deploys the entire thing. Simple as that, right? Simple as that. Now, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper on what this means. So don't worry, folks. We're going to dive deeper into this, like way, way deep. Okay. So I just want to show you a basic construct and what it does. So this means that for the classification, I'm using a Bedrock model. I'm using the default Claude Sonnet 4. 4, that's the one that we're defaulting to right now. We're using cross-region inferencing. Same with the processing. I'm using the default prompts that comes out of the box. I'll show you what those default prompts look like later on. But you can override any of these things. There are different customization layers that we will go through. And as you will notice here that I enabled observability. It's one flag. It enables CloudWatch metrics. It enables CloudWatch logs. It enables X-ray tracing as well. And those are all baked into the solution itself. This is one of the most basic examples that we can show you. Now, I'm going to go back to my presentation slide because I want to show you just a few slides to explain further on the layering that we discussed earlier. Okay? Okay. So, as I mentioned earlier, right, the way that we developed this framework is that we started with a basic infrastructure foundation layer. So that's where the step functions come in. That's where, S3 comes in to store your documents. That's where, SQS comes in to queue that request and so on. And I'll show you this in the code later on. When you go up another layer, the general use case implementation, that's where the Bedrock document processing there comes in, right? General use case, you can change the prompt however way you want to. So if, let's say, you don't want to extract information from the document, let's say you want to summarize the document or do something else with that document, you can define and customize those prompts accordingly. Now, here's the cool part. Let's say you don't want to use Bedrock. That's cool, right? Let's say you want to use Texttract, you want to use Comprehend, or you want to use another open source library based on Python, for example, that can read a PDF, extract specific information. You don't want to use LLMs, which is cool, right? You want to do another approach to extract information. You can do that as well without reinventing everything else. Or you can mix an LLM as a classification and then use a Python-based library for your data extraction. You can do that. You can mix and match all of these things. Think of it as Lego blocks, right? And then you have an industry-aligned implementation, which Fabrianne will demo later on. Now, we will, so we have a base document processing. This contains all of the basic infrastructure that is the same across all of the implementations, right? So if you are a student of OOP, if you love object-oriented programming, I grew up, writing Java at the start of my career. So object-oriented programming is near and dear to my heart. Think of it as an abstract class. This abstract class contains abstract methods that slots into each one of this. So the document classification, that's an abstract method. You have extraction, enrichment, all of those different steps, those are abstract methods. And as you go up the implementation, you implement the general use case implementation, like the Bedrock example that I gave you. You basically provide a Bedrock specific implementation for classification, for extraction, and so on and so forth, right? Now, let's say you want to implement a Python-based approach specifically for extraction only. What you do is you extract the Bedrock, you extend the Bedrock document processing, and you override the doc extraction, and you provide your own implementation. You keep everything as is, right? So that's the beauty. Think of it this way. You are combining infrastructure as code with your application, and bringing that object-oriented goodness into how you define your infrastructure as code. And CDK allows you to do a lot of this cool stuff. Okay, so before I want to quickly show you, I'm going to switch back to my code because I want to show you a couple more stuff in the code base itself, right? So when I showed you the earlier code, that was from the perspective of somebody consuming the library as a user. Now, what if, let's say, you want to dive deeper? You wanna do a little bit more customizations. So there are different levels of customizations that we're talking about here, right? So the first one here is that if you're just changing, if you're using the construct as is, and then you're just changing, let's say, the prompts. Let's say, for example, I wanna change the processing prompt, summarize the data inside the document, inside the attached document. You can do that. You obviously have to deploy this change, and then you can upload the document and so on and so forth, right? You can do that. So these are the most basic stuff that you can do in order to make those basic level of customizations, right? Now, I want to dive into inside the Bedrock document processing itself, right? Now, this is from the perspective if I want to do more heavy customizations in the code. So if you look at the Bedrock document processing, I have the classification step here. I overrode this. And as you can see inside the code, let me stretch this a little bit further. You can see I'm calling a Python function here that calls a function that has an ability to invoke a Bedrock LLM, an LLM that is hosted in Bedrock. And then I'm passing the prompts, I'm passing the model ID, and I'm passing other information, like I'm using Power Tools as well for my observability. Shout out to the Power Tools team. Awesome framework. So if you're writing Lambda function, definitely strongly recommend Power Tools. It made our lives a lot easier writing this. So kudos to the team for their work on this one. So a lot of these things, like, for example, encryption keys, security, job zero, we want to make sure we're following least privilege principles. So we want to define the roles using least privileges. And then we return the step. So after we create the step, after we create the Lambda function itself, we want to return the Lambda invoke. Now, this is a step in the step function, right? Same thing here for the processing step. We're just passing a different prompt here, but it's reusing the same Lambda function, and we're returning the same Lambda invoke, but different sort of configuration because it's a different step within the step function. Now you're thinking I'm assuming you're thinking, okay, where do you construct all of these step functions? Because I can see a lot of step functions in the earlier screenshot, right? So we go to the base document processing. This is the abstract class, right? So this is where all of the infrastructure is defined. So we have this method here. Let me just scroll to that, called handle state machine creation. Now, all of the different abstract methods that we defined earlier, this is being called in this location, and this one creates the step function. Depending on the complexity of what you're doing, the step function will adjust accordingly. And this is one way to build a step function using CDK. You can build step functions using the UI in the console. You can create step functions using its own DSL. But my personal favorite, CDK, object-oriented way of building step functions, chef's kiss. It's amazing. Because you can do a lot more stuff. You have a lot more flexibility. You can apply object-oriented principles to make those behavioral changes on how your step functions behave, and it's very customizable in that sense. Now, there's one other way that I mentioned earlier, wherein after you have the general implementation, you have an industry-specific implementation, right? This is where I'm going to pass it to Fabrianne. She's going to talk about the agentic way of doing things, which is a further specialization of the Bedrock document processing, which takes this to a whole different level. Fabrianne, over to you.
Excellent. So, Jan, so the cleverness really is also having this layered approach, that you've got some infrastructure blueprints which multiple things can access, and then you've got the third layer and the industry on it. And I think that's probably when I was talking earlier about this being customizable and extensible. I like the way you framed it as well with the object-oriented programming and classes, because that makes sense and makes it obviously much easier to swap things in and out as long as you understand the building blocks that put it together. So I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just put Fabrianne's screen up. There we go. And of course, agentic, the whole world is going agentic. So I love to see it.
Yeah. So yeah, for this one, we're gonna dive straight into the demo, and then we'll go into the code and see how the behind the scenes work. But just an overview. So for this, we are implementing you can see it's a whole web app, right? An AI-powered insurance claims document processor. This one being agentic. So Jan has talked a lot about the base document processing, the bedrock document processing, and we have one more layer, a third layer called agentic document processing, and later we'll look into the code and see how all that works. And together with that, we have like front-end constructs and the API layer to integrate all well together to create this demo. So let's dive right in. This is an insurance use case. As you can see, it has you can input multiple document types. So usually when you have an insurance claims to make, right, you would have to upload your supporting documents and match with the relevant policy document before making your claim. So let's go ahead and do that. We have our policy document here first for a start. So in this case, today I know that this is going to be my policy. I'm uploading this into the relevant S3 bucket. So that's what is happening at the back end. And also over here, we have our supporting documents. So in this case, what I'm making is a travel claim. Let me just show you over here. A travel claim that is for a flight delay compensation, right? A flight delay compensation, 18 hours due to severe weather conditions. So now John has to justify his need for to prove that it's valid, right? So going back over here, he has meal receipts, hotel receipts. I'm just gonna upload all of that right in. So the meal receipts being uploaded, the hotel receipts also, and of course, the airline delay notification itself. So all these being uploaded, you can see it is all within the policies as well as supporting documents. So just to show you that it really is there, you can see over here, yep, this is local time Singapore, 3:28 a.m. Over here, the airline delay notice, hotel receipt, and meal receipts. And going back here, the policies just being uploaded. So now, let's go ahead and upload the insurance claim itself. So I'm gonna now upload this insurance claim. And you will see it take a while to process because what is happening behind the scenes is that it's triggering that whole document processing workflow, which Jen has talked extensively about, and now also with that agentic capabilities, so that what it's doing is that it will be matching the insurance claim against all the supporting documents and the relevant policy to see whether there's sufficient evidence for that claim to be justified, right? Or if not, give recommendations on what has to be modified for it to be accepted. So let's go ahead and see the step functions. You can see now it's currently running, right? Running live. So I'm gonna click into it. And it's currently in the processing step. So while waiting, we can review the previous steps, starting with classification. So for classification, you can see it has all the relevant metadata. Yep, so metadata also being stored in the DynamoDB. All these part of that overall document processing construct that we've created. And it's flexible. You can modify to meet your needs. Right, and also you can see, yeah, it has just completed. So just one moment, we'll come back to this soon. I'll show you that actually the upload is successful, and unfortunately, it's rejected, right? So it has classified as an insurance claim. Just now you saw that is the classification step. Now it's the claim status is rejected. So let's read the justification here from the user point of view, and then we'll go to the step functions to see more details. So what's it saying? So this is after it has been processed by the GenAI agent, right, powered by Bedrock. It's saying that while the flight delay claim is valid and within policy coverage limits, two discrepancies, meal expenses claim do not match the actual receipts provided. So it's doing a match, right, based on the PDFs. And then no supporting receipt was provided for the claimed $25 transportation expense. So the claim should be partially approved for $221.74 pending submission of missing transportation receipt or adjustment of claim amount. Right, so okay, the user understands, you will make the modification accordingly and re-upload the claim for a new acceptance. So what actually happens behind the scenes? So this is the classification. You can see it has classified insurance claim as you saw in the front end. After that, it would just populate the DynamoDB accordingly and move to the processing step. So you can see what happens over here is that it would output whatever you saw in the results just now, right? And more interestingly, we will take a look at the logs to see what's happening behind the scenes. So this is the Lambda logs. And you can see over here how the GenAI is interacting with the documents. So for example, it's saying, I'll help you analyze the insurance claim document. Let me start by examining the claim form to extract the policy number and understand the claim details. And then it goes ahead and fetches relevant tools, right? So you can just think of this GenAI having more tools, and it's like an extension of its capabilities where we incorporate additional tools, and later you will see also in the code. So this would give it additional functionality to interact with our document. So in this case, we would want it to extract the PDF text, it identify the relevant tools to use, and extract the information accordingly. So you can see all this information over here. And just also to see this is data masking in place, which we have also incorporated within our code. And then you will download the relevant policy to match, right? And once again, extract the relevant information, download the supporting documents, this tool, and from there, it will extract relevant information once again. And from there, come up with its analysis, right? So its analysis of the policy being verified and the supporting documents being verified, what's the coverage limits? So, and ultimately, a consolidated justification on why this is accepted or rejected.
So Fabrianne, that's actually running a full agentic loop within that single Lambda function. So it's not just multiple Lambda functions doing calls or that kind of thing. You've actually got a whole agent framework in there, figuring out the tools that
we're leveraging
working all out itself.
Correct. So let's just switch right to the code now so that you have a better understanding. So just for you can see we are using the strengths agent. It's somewhere, but yes, it's the strengths agent framework. And essentially, we have deployed this whole agentic document processing pipeline backend, right? Using this agentic document processing stack, and then the front end with the front end stack accordingly. So let me just bring you to the architecture first so you have just a quick view of it. The back end was essentially this, right? It's calling this lambdas, all these lambdas calling the Bedrock agent. And then the front end, it's just a Cloud Front and S3 to deploy the front end. And all these are within its individual constructs, and then we have integrated it with an API layer, right? So you can see over here, for example, the front end stack, it only has 4 lines for Cloud Front and S3, right? I mean, of course, you will need the front end code in the relevant files, but the point is for the in the infrastructure layer, just 4 lines or even less, right? Because some is actually optional kind of parameters. So just your source directory, your build output directory, and we can easily enable observability also to see, let's say, CloudWatch logs, X-ray, and all that. And then the agentic document processing, that's what we saw just now. Let's go and see you can see a new agentic document processing construct being used. So it's instantiated over here. And in this case, we are using the queued S3 adapter. So it's an ingress adapter, which means that you can easily swap it out. I think Jen briefly also mentioned, you can swap out if you don't want an S3 as the ingestion point. You can can easily make your own adapter and replace this. So you can see how extensible this kind of OOP methodology is. And yeah, just define some parameters, agents, agent definitions. And over here are the system prompt, right? You can easily define system prompts and tools. So you can see how all these, you are just, with just a few lines of editing the configs, you are able to get this whole pipeline set. So for example, the prompt right now, by just defining this line, you can just define your prompt here and easily adapt accordingly. So in this case, is an insurance, you're an insurance claim specialist. Use the provided tools to ensure submitted claims and supported documents are valid, right? And then the tools, you can see a download policy tool asset, supporting document tool asset, and PDF extractor. It's all in Python scripts. So in this case, our tools are Python scripts, but you are free to use whatever type of tools you want based on your needs, right? And this can easily extend to like knowledge bases and all that also. So in this case, downloading the policy, downloading and supporting documents, and also a PDF extractor tool, right? And coming back here, of course, all these tools would have dependencies of some sort also. So we have just used this Lambda layer to easily integrate all that. And ultimately, the prompt itself, you can see how we have defined the prompt and gives it details on the tools and what it should be verifying against, and that the final output should be in this specific JSON so that we can easily display it in the front end. And some other things is, just enabling of observability in order to see that logs and end-to-end flow. And yeah, that's the definition of from the agentic document processing point of view.
Just want to add as well, I think Fabrianne, in the example that you've deployed here, there's a concept called log group data protection. So this is basically CloudWatch Log's native data masking capability. We've actually leveraged on that and sort of integrated that in the framework itself, so that if, let's say, you define specific data entities like names, email addresses, etc., right, as a sort of a policy, then CloudWatch, as part of CloudWatch Logs, it will automatically mask those information. Again, security, job zero. So PII information, protection of PII information is very important. But obviously, these things, you have to configure that in the parameters of the construct, what type of information you're expecting, what type of information you want to mask, and so on. This is all native to CloudWatch Logs, by the way.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. So that's the overview of this. And some more interesting things is, we've also defined the buckets. You can see bucket encryption, KMS bucket encryption also in place, so security. And we have enabled the relevant calls accordingly so that it can access the front end. Okay. And then going into the construct itself, right? Because that's from the user point of view, how you've built that, like how you can use the constructs being built. Now, this is the agentic document processing construct. So over here, you can see that it actually extends Bedrock document processing, which Jen talked extensively about. But in this case, I guess the key thing to highlight is that you can see the processing step is now being overridden by a customized kind of implementation, agentic implementation. In this case, we are leveraging the batch agent to do so. So the batch agent is also something that we have developed, and that would bring us to talk more about the agentic AI framework. But you can see how it's easy, right, to easily have your own customized, even construct implementation with just several lines of code, and you can leverage all the object-oriented programming kind of principles to create, whether it's overriding, overloading, and all that for your own customized use cases. Yeah, Julian, Jen, anything to add before I move on to agentic AI framework?
Well, I mean, I love just looking through the code and seeing all the best practices built in. Things like the bucket policies and all that encryption and all those kind of things, because those that actually, CDK can get quite simple, and you start to add all the complexity with all the encryption and all the best practices. I love that this is built in, and I know you've done a lot of work behind the scenes to make sure that all the right security controls and everything are put in. So good job.
Yeah, so now we've talked a lot about like a specific use case, right? Like document processing and agentic document processing. Now I want to just zoom back out a bit and share a bit more about this agentic framework. So essentially, when we were building the agents, we tried to make it as generalizable as possible. Yes, now Jen was showing a lot on the base document processing, right? But we also did the same thing with agents. And this can power many different use cases. The one you saw was intelligent document processing, but it can also power content generation, conversational chatbots, and you can see how all these layers work, right? So with a base agent construct being implemented with the tool management system, built-in integration, built-in security, and observability, now it can be easily extended to different types of agent, the batch agent or interactive agent. Now we're in the progress of developing this one with real-time streaming, session management, multi-turn conversations, right, for chatbots, kind of interactive chatbots kind of use cases. And all these can power many different use cases. This is just 3, but there are many others also not in the list. And ultimately, the different industry use cases. So this is how we have built it. Generalizer.
Just to add to what Fabrianne mentioned, because I just realized we haven't updated the slide. So last week we actually implemented an integration with the knowledge base. So actually, go back to that slide, Fabrianne. I just want to quickly show you.
But yes, the batch agent also, just to show there's a knowledge.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So the whole idea with knowledge bases, right? If you think about knowledge bases as a whole and how it's integrated into any framework, that doesn't matter if it's trans or any other agentic framework, but the consumption or integration of knowledge bases is very similar, right? They're basically treated as tools. So if let's say the orchestrating LLM deems that it's necessary to access a knowledge base to augment its reasoning, then as long as it has access to those tools, it will reach out to those tools, right? So we started thinking about how can we incorporate a knowledge base capability into the foundational of the base agent in such a way that we allow users, developers, users, whatever, to use whatever knowledge base that they want to use, whether we've implemented it or they've implemented, doesn't matter, right? So we've implemented a knowledge base framework, basically an interface, abstract class, and a concrete implementation, standard OOP stuff. So we have a default implementation using Bedrock knowledge base with S3 vectors. I love S3 vectors. With S3 vectors as the vector store. And then inside that knowledge base, there is a single method there called retrieve tool asset. Now, if you're using the batch agent, for example, if you want to incorporate the knowledge base, all you have to do is to add that as a parameter. Now, if let's say you don't want to use Bedrock knowledge base, you want to use some other knowledge base framework, you implement the base, you extend the base knowledge base abstract class. You obviously hook up to your knowledge base of choice, whether that's OpenSearch or something else. And then you just define the tools. And then you hook that up to your agent. And then your agent will do the rest. So this is part of the extensible nature of the framework itself. And we started thinking about all this swappable components of all of this different, areas of the framework itself. And we're providing default implementations where it makes sense, but we're also allowing users and developers to build their own implementations and just plug that right in.
Excellent. So would the use case in this this agentic example be those policy documents, for example, instead of having to upload them every single time as part of the LLM call, you could just store the policy documents, for example, in a knowledge base, and then just retrieve your insurance company policies, and then check. Okay.
Yep. So we're continuing working to improve the contracts, making it more and more extensible for a variety of use cases. All right. Okay, so I think now we have 15 more.
So what other extensibility things are you thinking of?
I'm going to show that right now. So Julian, if you can swap my the screen to the one that and I'll answer that directly.
Sorry, I have a bit of a lag. I'm gathering, so yeah. Apologies to everyone watching if I sound as though I'm speaking in the future. Weird. Internet, computers, slow.
Okay, thank you. So to answer Julian's question on what the extensible nature of this, right? So I want to go back to the document processing. And one of the things that I was thinking about as I was building the knowledge base is summarization capability, right? So I took one of our white papers, one of the telco white papers, AWS white paper, right? So it's around 171 pages and so on. I chuck it to our document processing, and obviously it errored out because we needed to do some chunking because it's over 100 pages, right? So then I started thinking, how can we implement chunking as an extended functionality of the document processing without, impacting how everything works? And this is more of just expanding further on multiple different areas. And this is one of the things why step functions is such an amazing service. So number one, we added a pre-processing step. So before we talk about classification step, we talk about processing step, post-processing, enrichment, and so on, right? Now, at that point, when we started developing this, we didn't have a pre-processing step. So I added that. So when you enable chunking, it automatically, it's a single parameter, enable chunking, set it to true, by default it's false. But it will automatically add a pre-processing step, which analyzes the PDF and chunks them. When I say chunking, it actually creates the chunk information itself. So if you can see the JSON in the step function node step output, the state output, you can see the chunks here. And you can see I'm storing the chunks in S3. So you can see the start page, the end page, page count 99. And you will notice page overlaps as well. That's fine. That's normal. And that's a recommended sort of, best practice when you're dealing with document chunking in general, right? So we're doing some overlapping. You can customize the level of overlapping that you want. There are default values and so on. Now, one of the cool bits about step functions is that you can parallelize steps using the map state, right? And inside that, I push the chunk array and just do the classification, do the processing. Each of the chunks, they're agentic tool calls to extract the text, and then I'll ask the LLM to summarize that. So if you will be able to see it, processing results, summary, and so on and so forth. Again, this is very MapReduce-S type of function. So after I have all of that stuff, I will then do an aggregation. And then again, one of the things I really love about step function is I can normalize the result and write it in the processing result so that all of the downstream area will stay the same because I normalize how the input and output is done. Now, the post-processing here, I put my own post-processing function, which basically takes the summary, generates embeddings, and store that into an S3 vector store so that I can do searching and whatnot on the summary. So again, from a framework perspective, it's just one call, enable chunking. That's it. And it does all of these things for you. You can do your own customizations. You can do your own pre-processing step. Again, same stuff. You can override the method and provide your own chunking analysis, chunking, the actual chunking itself, and so on. Now, I understand we have 10 minutes left. I want to quickly pass it back to Fabrianne because she's going to talk about something really cool with Kiro, which has been very helpful with some of the more complex implementations of the framework itself. Over to you, Fabrianne.
Cool.
Thanks, Jen. Okay, you can see my screen now. Right, so I think for this final 10 minutes, we just want to share more about how we've developed this. You can see the two of us developing a very comprehensive repository. So, of course, now in the Gen AI era, we have leveraged generative AI to help accelerate a lot of our workflows, and that's something that we just want to share. I hope it may be helpful for those who may want to contribute or use our catalog, or if not for your own use cases, you can do that too, right? So for the development, right, ever since after the first release of AppMod catalog, we have been using Kiro to develop. So Kiro is this integrated development IDE platform, right? And it specializes in this thing called spec-driven development. So we have leveraged this spec-driven development in helping us with this, and with this methodology called AI-driven development lifecycle, AIDLC, which is formalized as a methodology like in the middle of last year. You can search a blog about it if you're interested. So essentially, the idea of AIDLC, spec-driven development, is this collaborative approach with AI, right, where you would be interacting with AI to go through that whole SDLC process, starting from the requirements gathering to the design to the task. And I can just show you some of this in progress, right, from the specs point of view. Currently building an interactive agent, still in progress. And you can see at each point, starting, let's say, from the requirements, it will be asking me questions relating to what I'm doing. And from there, it will be a back and forth, and before finally coming up with a detailed requirements kind of document, which would then translate into the design. So the design, which would be the more technical, like let's say the inheritance patterns, how would my agent function be implemented, or like the communication architecture. And finally, the task, which is more like the fine grain, or what are we doing in the implementation step by step. So this has been very helpful. And what makes it very successful also is this thing called steering docs, right? So you can see over here, this steering, essentially, it steers the direction of your development. You can think of it like guides. So it understands the context of your repository. So we did spend a few hours just curating steering docs specific for our workflows and specific for understanding this repository. So if you are building on it, yeah, feel free to leverage all this. It's all in the .kiro. We also pushed it to GitHub so that you can access it. But essentially, you can start by looking at, let's say, the AIDLC spec-driven core workflow document, which we've curated. And it's basically giving Kiro this workflow on how to go about thinking about things when using our repo. So for example, over here, when starting with a new work type, right? When you want to build a new feature like an interactive agent construct, you have to determine whether it's a construct or an example. So example would be like the chatbot. Construct is the use case itself. And from there, it will go through that whole process. We give it more details on how exactly to do the requirements, the design, and the task. The next thing is this construct development guide, right? So this was also, all this took a few hours because we curated it to specifically understand our repository and use object-oriented programming best practices. So you can see even we've specified like what type of construct work there is within this repository, right? For anyone to contribute. Let's say it's creating a new construct from scratch, adding a new layer, adding features, creating adapters, plugins, or cost-cutting concerns. And then also, what are the OOP architectural patterns that we would like incorporated when in the context of this project, right? So in this case, we gave examples of the agent implementations. What are the different types of patterns that we have used, like from extending modern base to a concrete implementation and even a specialized implementation. So I think just also curating this workflow was fun in itself. We did learn a lot, and once you have a good workflow, right, it can help accelerate your entire development. As you can see, we have created specs for different kinds of things, and we'll just be adding on. Yeah. So I think we're mindful of
Fabrianne, I think that's amazing.
Yes,
I think that's amazing from a different perspective as well, because I've used the Spectre in development and I love it. But I think you've taken it to a nice level, which I want to explain, highlight that even under the specs, if you're just looking on your specs, and I was just looking at the PDF chunking support, for example, instead of having a spec, a design document, a requirements document, and a task document for the whole project, you're actually just narrowing it down to each sort of sub module or sub project that you're doing. And I think that really helps with your AI coding, because instead of thinking of this as one big thing, you're thinking it as lots of different components, and each of them would have a design document and a required document from that specs. But all underpinning the whole thing is the steering docs, which have the the testing guide, the document processing guide, the coding standards. Like if you look at the coding standards, that that's amazing to think of. How am I going to do my file naming, my TypeScript conventions? I'm just flicking through. So yeah, so anyone who's doing any AI coding, this is such a helpful way. And also this takes a lot of time to build initially, but once you've done it, your coding standards are available for all your future projects. So it's also a really useful way that you can just grab these markdown files and go for it. So I love it. I love it.
Yeah, that's great. All right.
And also in Kiro, you can ask Kiro to generate your steering docs as well. So that's also another thing. If you have an existing repository, you can say, please, can you generate steering docs? And at least it'll give you a start.
Yeah, that's right. So at the initial one, we generated the initial steering docs, but of course, for specific workflows, you have to do a lot of additional ones to make it specific to what you want to do. So yes, it's a good starter. And then from there, iterate through with Kiro also to curate the steering docs that you would like. And from there, you can start your spec-driven development in this kind of AI-driven development kind of methodology. Okay, so
excellent. We need way more time to get onto this.
But yes, we want to just have a call to action to come. This is the build with AppMod Catalog Blueprints. We really enjoyed sharing today. And yeah, this is the documentation, GitHub and blog QR codes. Feel free to take a screenshot or a photo, access it anytime that you like. And we are always looking for contributors and users for AppMod Catalog feedback, also any kinds of feedback, raising issues and all that, so that we can continue to improve this for our customers, for our partners. And yeah, Jen, Julian, anything to add?
I just want to say thank you very, very much. It's a huge amount of work that's gone in here. And even if you're not interested in necessarily document processing, looking at this repo and seeing all the best practices are there, the steering docs, how the CDK constructs are done, the security that's built in, all those kind of things is amazing that you can grab and use for your other applications. So yeah, Jan and Fabrianne, amazing job. There's so much more in here that everyone can get, even in addition to all the great use cases you put together. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Julian. Really happy to be on this.
And of course, we'll be back same time, same place next week. Yes, everybody, it's now 4 o'clock in the morning in Singapore, so I really appreciate it. Stuart has also says thank you very much. So yeah, thanks so much for everybody, and appreciate you staying up super late in your night. And thanks for joining us on Serverless Office Hours. See you next week. Bye-bye.